Johannesburg International Airport. Every year, almost 20 million passengers pass through, while almost 9,000 vehicles drive in daily. Security is a logistical nightmare. Since September the 11th, airport security all over the world has become increasingly complex. Officials need to keep a step ahead of the criminals and ahead of those targeting the airport for their own political ends.
Your attention, please. An important announcement from airports coming to South Africa. Passengers and residents are reminded that smoking...
Johannesberg International is run by an independent body, the Airport Company South Africa, or ACSA. Security is an ongoing headache.
After 9/11, I think they've changed tremendously. There's been a sharp focus on security. And I think from the traveling public, just an awareness that it only takes one incident such as 9/11 to change the entire aviation industry.
We've since then had to install secure cockpit doors. That contact with the passengers has been lost. Threats of terrorism, etc., have obviously played on your mind, but the environment has definitely become a lot more hostile.
Despite all the new security measures, airports are still vulnerable. In the past year, criminals have outsmarted security at two major airports. Millions of dollars were lost in a heist at Heathrow in London. At Schiphol in Amsterdam, a KLM cargo plane carrying diamonds was the target.
The recent incidents in certainly Heathrow and also more recently Schiphol highlight the fact that airports, because of the nature of business that they're in, are very, very attractive to organized criminal syndicates.
Johannesberg International has also had its share of incidents. Last year, robbers wielding AK-47s tried to rob a KLM cargo plane of diamonds. They were thwarted. But in a heist 4 years ago, robbers got away with diamonds and cash worth millions of dollars.
Police are still searching for gang members involved in a multi-million rand armed robbery at a cargo depot near Johannesburg International.
The guards were inspecting cargo from Amsterdam when the gang approached them. They took a firearm off security guard and forced them to load the contents of the cargo onto their truck. At the main entrance...
Paul OSullivan headed up ACSA's security division at the time of the KLM heist. He has vast experience in security matters, and particularly in aviation security.
On my first day of work, at 10 o'clock in the evening, I got a phone call to say that there'd been an armed robbery at Johannesburg International Airport.
Those people were actually caught, and it was revealed that they did have and they were working with people from the inside.
At stake was $9.5 million in cash and a couple of $100,000 in diamonds, cut and uncut. So it's $9.7 million.
There have been other security breaches at Joburg International. In 2005, a Comer warehouse and a Nationwide warehouse were robbed. In 2004, the Spare Steak Ranch at the airport was robbed. Barriers have been put in place to prevent incidents like these. Theoretically, someone on the outside should never get access to sensitive areas.
But generally speaking, one should not be able to go with a couple of vehicles and 5 armed men and AK-47s and have shootouts under the wing of aircraft. Not only could I see it coming, I warned about it in writing.
There were multiple things. And the biggest was there were people who we had contracted with to provide for a security service who were involved in organized criminal activity.
In fact, had the Americans or the British or any other country known what was going on at JIA, they would have stopped the flights immediately.
The real challenge, though, is how you respond to any incident that happens at your airport that is security related. If there is that willingness to respond such that you ensure that the incident does not repeat itself, then I think that that is the first sign of a positive response. It was no different from the incidents that have happened in Europe and some of the incidents that have happened in the US. Any one incident is one incident too many.
The stakes are just so high. One act of terrorism can really, really destroy our tourist industry.
Terrorism, like criminal activity, is a window of opportunity. And what happens is you've got these layers of security in place. Now, each layer of security is not 100%. There's little gaps in it. So the more layers you have, the more secure your airfield is. And what the terrorist needs to know, and what the criminal needs to know, he needs to know where he can line up these layers with a window that goes right through. And quite clearly, that's able to happen on a very regular basis at Johannesburg International Airport. Every crime that takes place at that airport of significance takes place, A, outside post office hours, and B, with inside information. Which tells me that you have there a large barrel of rotten apples.
Johannesburg International Airport has been plagued by organised crime and in December saw a massive multi-million rand heist. Now the security, police and the airport authorities are banding together to beat the gangs.
The lessons that we learned from the first incident, wherein the heist was actually successful, allowed us to employ measures that were the deterrent that led to the attempt in 2004 being unsuccessful.
South Africa has won the right to host the 2010 FIFA World Cup. Its airports will be at their busiest ever. ACSA management knows that an incident like the KLM heist can never be repeated. South Africa simply can't afford it, financially or politically. Airports put up physical barriers to secure certain areas. To enter these areas, you need an access card. Every employee carries one at all times, and with it, you have automatic access to many of the secured parts of the airport. The best security system, though, is only as reliable as the human beings that operate it. And that's where the problems start. Heists or attempted heists make headline news. But many other illegal acts take place at Johannesburg International with the help of access cards. We managed to get hold of an access card without much difficulty, at a cost of 500 Rand. It allowed us into secured parts of the airport for 2 entire days in April. This is the method criminals use to get past the barriers. All it takes is some money and help from someone on the inside.
On a nightly basis, between 5 and 15 Pakistanis were finding their way into South Africa. And you know, post 9/11, who's to know whether any of those Pakistanis, if they were Pakistanis, who's to know if they weren't Al-Qaeda operatives? In fact, we do know of one incident where an Al-Qaeda operative was picked up.
That's from January up until now, end of May, we've arrested 120 illegal immigrants trying to smuggle themselves through the Johannesburg International Airport into South Africa.
The access card we acquired allowed us into many off-limits areas. No one stopped to question us as we moved directly from the apron to the International Transit Lounge and back. With the help of airport employees, it's relatively easy for individuals to be spirited out of the airport and into South Africa at a cost of about 10,000 Rand a head. The modus operandi is simple. A foreigner books a flight to one of our neighboring countries via South Africa. With a few hours to go before the connecting flight, the passenger waits in the transit lounge. The contact at the airport then arrives. armed with an access card and regulation yellow jacket for the apron. The foreigner is then ushered through the back door to freedom. And for those who wish to commit acts of violence, once you're through, the options are endless.
If you can buy your way in to an airport secure area or buy your way out of an airport secure area, you can create the environment for terrorism. You know, 3 or 4 weeks ago, within 35 minutes of each other, 2 aircraft took off from Domodedovio at Moscow. And those 2 aircraft, one was a Siberian Airlines aircraft and the other one, I forget where it was, but they were both inbound flights, domestic flights within Russia. And within 30 minutes of each other, both those aircraft blew up. What did they find was the single largest problem at that Moscow airport? Was the fact that both of those bombers were female bombers. Both of those bombers had purchased their way into the secure area at the airport.
If criminal activities and corruption is part of our system that is supposed to be secure, then that endangers the lives of our flying passengers and our crews, and that is unacceptable.
A number of measures were put in place. From these measures and the last couple of months, there's been a lot of coverage about the number of people that we have been arresting at the airport, including our own members, police members, other government officials at the airport, and other people working within the airport environment. And that, once again, takes out the weak spot, if you want to call it, within the security net that we're creating in the airport.
The corruption at Johannesburg International Airport filters right through, not just at ACSA, within the police, within the customs, within the immigration, the cleaners, the security contractors, it's everywhere.
After the 2001 KLM heist, ACSA realized that something drastic needed to be done. They launched what was dubbed Operation Octopus to clean up the airport and tighten security. Paul OSullivan was still with ACSA at the time.
What Operation Octopus was for both us and the SAPS was, for the first time, let us together dig into the detail. In fact, the decision to launch Operation Octopus was as a result of many assessments that were done. In part, that informed the fact that there is a specific operation that needs to be launched to understand the issues that you have raised, and therefore to draw appropriate measures to address those issues: the criminal activity, the human trafficking, the issues of security infrastructure, and so on and so forth.
Security at Joburg in 2002 continued to be abysmal. I continued, even though I was instructed not to, I continued to write about it, even though I was instructed not to. Because at the end of the day, I was a group executive, and people say, well, hang on, if security is such a mess, you're to blame. And I was determined that I was not going to be a scapegoat, yet I had no authority, because I was stationed at head office. In fact, I was even told to keep my nose out of Johannesburg. And the proof of that lies in the fact that on the 22nd or 21st of January, they launched this operation, they call it Operation Octopus. They tell the whole world and their wives how Operation Octopus will work, but I wasn't even involved. I was sidelined.
He was certainly a part of Operation Octopus. He was the head of group, he was the group executive security.
We are all partners in this country to make things better. It's time we took hands and did it. Instead of treating each other with suspicion that when you do raise an issue, maybe you're trying to criticize. That's not the issue. We're trying to make things better.
Security is the coming together of everybody. It is the coming together of immigration. It is the coming together of customs, the police, mayor. It is no point us coming together, but we are unable to work with each other. We must be comfortable that what I share here is not information that is going to be misused or abused.
Anti-corruption efforts are starting to deliver. This year, 120 illegal immigrants have been arrested, as well as a large number of airport officials. In 5 years' time, we'll host the Soccer World Cup. Our airports will be packed and security will have to be on high alert to avoid spoiling the party and embarrassing the country. ACSA says Johannesburg International will be ready, but its detractors think otherwise. When thousands of tourists arrived for the Cricket and Rugby World Cups, there were no incidents. But many more visitors are expected in 2010, and post-September 11, the stakes remain high.
Safety and security has to be a culture. You cannot suddenly become secure. Everybody the system has to be operating at optimum on a daily basis. The people have to be well trained. It has to become a culture. And even with a run up to 2010, we cannot wait until 2009 and then fix security. It has to become something we work at on a daily basis.
What we need there is management, operational management on the ground. Instead, they spend all their days in meetings, and none of the time is spent to carry out the things that they agree to do at the meetings.
Obviously similar to the WSSD, the Rugby World Cup in '95, the Cricket World Cup, they are the challenges of making sure that people arrive and leave through your airports in a safe and efficient manner. There are no bottlenecks, there are no long lines in immigration, there are not lines in customs. At check-in, the lines are not long at the security processing points, there are no long lines, the infrastructure is working, the baggage sortations. There are challenges that we face on a daily basis. However, those challenges are elevated when we have a major event.
Backing up any security system that ACSA puts in place are human beings. And this is the worrying factor. All employees will have to be monitored closely to ensure that no window of opportunity for criminals opens up. But there are encouraging signs that the security threat is being tackled head-on. These recruits are being trained in new ways to beef up security at the airport. But it will take careful monitoring to make sure they are part of the new solution and not new additions to the old problem.
And then the fourth paragraph.
Post 9/11, as an example, you had the formation of the Transport Security Agency in the US. And a decision was taken that they will no longer use private companies to do the screening of passengers. Those are all going to be government employees, and that the government can vet, that the government can clear, and so on and so forth. And that was a weakness that was identified that is being addressed. And we're looking at similar things. We're looking at how can we lay the rules to say, if you are this category of person, then you will not be permitted to work at an airport.
Trying to find the people that have the right attitude and motivation is probably a start. But it's a difficult job. I agree with that, and I admit that. But it's not impossible.
The 2006 Soccer World Cup in Germany provides ACSA with a chance to fine-tune its efforts. In some ways, it's a kind of dress rehearsal for our own spectacle.
There are going to be actually a couple of visits to Germany. Firstly, we want to learn about how they have been geared up to prepare for next year. What challenges they specifically faced. And we want to match those against ours to see where we stack up. We will also be sending a team during the actual World Cup to see what they're going to be doing as the people actually come through their facilities.
Visitors arriving at Johannesberg International put their safety into the hands of the authorities. But in recent years, this trust has been undermined by the ongoing skirmishes at ACSA. South Africa can only hope that these difficulties are sorted out soon. There are enough challenges ahead without them as we prepare for the 2010 Soccer World Cup.